Good evening and welcome to the Academy of Leadership and Innovation's Global Health Special Interest Group Town Hall. We are thrilled to be joined by some of our colleagues tonight to hear about their work abroad. But I thought I would start with some announcements. My name is Kai Kennedy. I'm the chair of the Global Health Special Interest Group and the ALI Director of Advocacy. We're thrilled to have you all here tonight, and it's an exciting time in our SIG and in our academy. So I wanted to share a couple of announcements with you, which I will try to do in chronological order. First, the Academy of Leadership and Innovation elections are currently open. And that includes some positions for the Global Health SIG. So we would really appreciate your participation in those elections, which close on October the 5th. There are several positions in our SIG, but also throughout the academy that any ALI member can vote on. So we encourage you to do so. We are also coming up on PT month. October, as you know, is PT month. And in October, we have the Global PT Day of Service on October 11th. And we're really interested from our membership in what activities might be going on as a part of PT Day of Service. And so we've developed a survey, which we will drop in the chat, and we will also post on our online on our socials and things. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts, your plans, your ideas for PT Day of Service, wherever in the world that you're working. So it'd be really cool to be able to compile all of the different ways that our SIG members are doing work around the world and supporting that initiative. And then finally, as we come into the fall and look toward the end of 2025 and start to think about CSM 2026. We have the opportunity to engage in the Academy of Leadership and Innovations ALI Fest or Ally Fest and poster session. Those of you who are members of the Global Health SIG will know this as the Global Health Reception that's been happening for many years, where our members have the opportunity to show their work by way of poster. We now do this event in partnership with the Population Health SIG and PT Proud SIG. So there are posters from all three of those SIGs at that event. And we encourage you to submit your work by the deadline on November the 1st. So some exciting opportunities to continue to engage with our SIG and with our academy and with each other. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to the Global Health SIG Programming Chair, Maria Aguila, to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Kai, and welcome everyone. Well, I'm very happy to introduce to all of you Dr. Alan Anderson and Dr. Lori Zucker, who are both highly experienced physical therapists with decades of clinical and academic experience, as well as long-standing yoga practices. So Dr. Anderson is a professor emerita from Rutgers University and holds a PhD in health sciences, and is known for integrating mindful and complementary therapies, especially yoga, into rehabilitation, mental health care, and education. Dr. Zucker, who holds a DPT and MA, has combined yoga and physical therapy practice in her actually private practice and has been integrating it for over 20 years and also used to teach as an adjunct instructor at the Rutgers DPT program. So both are certified yoga teachers, teach anatomy and yoga internationally, shares a passion for blending Eastern and Western healing approaches, and together they bring a unique and holistic perspective to health, recovery, and wellness through movement and mindfulness. So on a personal note, I'm very happy not just to call them colleagues, but friends as well. I've actually been a yoga practitioner and I've actually attended one of their courses so many years back then. I'm excited to have them tonight with us. Welcome, Ellen and Lori, and welcome to all our participants for tonight.
Maria, thank you so much. Kai, thank you very much for allowing us a few moments to talk a little bit about what we've done globally. I am going to share a slide deck with you. Well, it's a brief picture of what we did last January. So Ellen and I have been teaching uh, workshops integrating yoga into rehabilitation practice for many years, 10 years or more. And we had this idea that maybe we should look outside of the United States and find a place to continue learning and teaching. And we settled upon Cuba, actually. We had Ellen and I led a teacher training in Mexico. And when we went down, we worked with a group of people from Mexico and from Ecuador. It was an extraordinary experience. A lot of our materials translated into Spanish, and we came to understand the real value of bringing some of our knowledge outside of New Jersey and outside of the United States. And so we thought about Cuba and we looked into it a few times and happily came, built a relationship with a travel agent who made it very, very easy with all the, whatever the regulations were and filling out the forms. And our travel agent was the person who helped find the physical therapists and the movement people in Cuba. When we did a little bit of research, we thought, okay, so the Cuban therapists are not invited to CSM. They're not invited to the World PT conferences, but maybe they're invited, let's say, to Mexico or South America or someplace else. And we did a little searching, and in fact, they often are not invited. They're not included. It would be very expensive and very challenging for some of the professionals to travel outside of Cuba. And so we went to them. And let me just show you. So this was the workshop, and I see that Judy Deutsch is on this call. Without Judy, our Cuba trip would have been much more challenging. She, of course, is bilingual and did an immense amount of translating for us. We did have a translator, but because it was the first time that Ellen and I had actually been to Cuba, we had no real understanding of what was going on culturally, what the needs were. And because Judy was there, it made it made the entire trip really, really meaningful. It would have been nice anyway, but this was much, much more meaningful. So you can see that we had set some course objectives so that there should be some interaction, some cultural exchange. Here's an image of Ellen teaching our participants, the people that we brought with us to Cuba. It was a dual setup where we did some teaching just to our participants who came to Cuba with us, and then we did some combined activities. Here, teaching every morning that we were in Cuba, we led a yoga class with rehabilitation overtones and understandings for our participants. And this is one of the casas, one of the places that we stayed in a very nice area of Havana called Miramar. This is an image of a breakfast that we had, and you can't really see him, but the person who is sitting closest to the window is a reporter from Belly of the Beast. Ellen, do you want to talk a little bit about what the Belly of the Beast is? Because you've been following them a little bit more than I have.
Sure. The Belly of the Beast is a publication, an online publication that's produced by Cubans, but they also have a foundation in which they do documentaries. And their mission is to support the Cuban people, at the same time describe some of the politics that's making it very difficult for the Cuban people to survive. And so what he was explaining to us were some US Cuban policies that we were actually not aware of, to the degree that these policies were having a negative impact on the Cuban people. both in their ability to access medicines, to access information, and even just to access food and tourist dollars because of the restrictions and the policies that have been made um, uh, since Obama had attempted to improve relations and to improve commerce, and then afterwards that was closed down again. So this was a very informative breakfast session. He didn't pull any punches as to some of the detrimental policies that the US has towards Cuba. But I think Lori and I both agreed it sort of strengthened our commitment to continue to find a way to have a relationship with the professionals in Cuba as well as the general population.
It's so one of the things that we learned as we went through this experience is that we had thought perhaps that we could give a talk at the physical therapy school, or perhaps we could go on a tour, we could meet the professionals or the students. And we learned that we cannot, that foreigners are not necessarily allowed into the universities, because while some of the policies of the United States are not favorable toward the Cubans, some of the Cuban policies don't allow us to come in because they want to control the messaging that is provided. So if we wanted to come into the university and speak, it would be a very onerous and perhaps a very long-term connection, because everything that we would say and all of our materials would need to be vetted, and we would need to be invited. And that probably Ellen and I, as Yogi Anatomy, let's say a private business, is unlikely that that would happen. That if there was going to be anything, it would be university to university, and it would need to be done at a much different scale. So what happened with us, because of the travel agent that we used and that we connected with, they allowed us to bring the professionals to us so that we could meet with them, and they came to us. And so that's what made a bigger difference. Okay, so belly of the beast. This is one of the places we ate. This was a typical morning breakfast. What you see here, you see Ellen and this therapist, Jeff Snyder. We are interacting. We had the therapists come to us. It was an effort. It was quite an effort to what we learned after speaking with our travel agent was that it's the transportation from where everybody works to us, for let's say for a conference, is not easy. There's not a lot of money to take a taxi or to join us. And so our travel agent actually provided transportation for all of the people who came to our workshops. She provided transportation too, and then back home. And in at least one or two of the cases, we also shared meals together, so that it was both a cultural exchange. We had time to talk. We also had time to teach. What we learned was that they really don't have TheraBand, and or resistant bands. I shouldn't say TheraBand. They don't have resistant bands, and while they were very interested in learning about them, it wasn't something that was a regularly used item. Now, just so you understand, each of us who came also brought things to donate. And so we probably brought over 5 or 6 duffels of things to donate. Some things that the travel agent suggested, like toothpaste, soap, children's over-the-counter medications, things like that. But we also brought a lot of physical therapy items. People brought pulse oximeters. We had a lot of TheraBand, kinesio tape, all manner of things that we all use on an everyday Coban, we use on an everyday basis, but that are either hard to get or even perhaps not available. And we just gave them to the professionals. We laid out a table and said, please take what you think will be useful in your own personal practices. We had some hands-on activities where we did some things and then we allowed our participants to try some things. Yeah. Everybody, you guys can help them practice if you like. It's just that we have a couple of brief videos and just trying to do, let's say, like a biomechanics lab or a therapeutic exercise kind of lab, giving people a chance to practice some of the things that we were speaking about and feel for themselves. Again, demonstrating a few things and having people come around, things that are so familiar to us in teaching and in continuing education classes, but that simply are not available to the professionals in Cuba. And then we had an extraordinary opportunity to take our group into an inner city senior center, and Ellen taught a chair yoga class. And so what you see here is a combination of the people we brought with us to Cuba and all of the seniors. They were outstanding. They participated, they were eager, and you'll see in a moment that after we were done teaching and sharing, they wanted to share with us. So take a moment and watch. Okay, you hear Judy yelling, thankfully guiding. Okay, take a look. And now this, after we were done teaching the chair yoga class, the seniors wanted to give back to us, and they introduced us to some salsa dancing.
Lori, may I interrupt really quickly?
Sure.
I just think, I just wanted to ask this because, I think it's very important that the audience at this point actually understand a little bit about the physical therapy education in Cuba. I know that in our previous, my conversation with Alan, from what I understand, like in the previous slides, he had like younger participants who I understand are the rehab professionals, right? So these are either physical therapists or massage therapists, correct? So could you talk a little bit more about, from what I remember, like the bifurcation, so to speak, of the physical therapy education from, like, say, rehab into massage therapists, right? And how the practice, kind of like is challenging, like afterwards. I think, Alan, we had that conversation, right?
Yeah, so what they explained to us is that historically, the massage therapy and physical therapy was an educational process that was conjoined, and then you could branch out. And so there is still that beginning piece of knowing anatomy and working in the idea of restoring movement, decreasing pain. So whether it's massage therapy or physical therapist. But the way that the government control works is that when you're sort of at the top of your income level, like a physical therapist, you're at the top of your income level. And that is made by whether you're a professional musician or whether you're an MD or whether you're a chemical engineer, you've reached the top. What happens is that they are somewhat controlled in what they are able to do outside of that. So if you think about your side hustle in the United States, like I'll pick up a couple of home care patients or I'll do this, that doesn't happen so easily. The massage therapists have a slightly different situation because they have a little bit more freedom, if you will, for seeing private clients, but they also need to adhere to regulations of the government. So they need to do a certain amount of work and training and testing in order for them to be able to sort of work independently for a client base. So what the massage therapist told us and the physical therapist is that the massage therapist may have a private client and they want rehab because they can't access the physical therapist. So the massage therapist feels as though they need to have more education to be able to assist their clients who need to improve their movement, not just have the massage piece, because the general population has an easier time accessing the massage therapist than they do the physical therapist. Maria, was that kind of the reflection that you wanted me to share? Yeah.
Yes, and kind of like that actually goes back to who were like your participants. The local participants were not limited to the rehab professionals, but also to massage therapists, if I
Correct.
understand correctly, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
After just what you're seeing here is an opportunity for some of the dance professionals to teach us how to do some salsa dancing. And we had I would say at least an hour or more of salsa dance training. And they taught us, the four most typical used moves, and we all practiced them. And one night we had the opportunity to go out dancing. So I am not going to show you the pictures of us dancing because we were not necessarily experts, but this is that.
And so one of the reasons why our tour organizer wanted us to incorporate dance teachers into the group, and we had 2 or 3 dance teachers in our group, is that she said they are able to kind of do a side hustle. And this is how they make their money, is they teach dance, and dance is a form of exercise for the Cubans. They enjoy it. It's a way for them to get physical activity. However, they really don't have a basis in safe body mechanics or in minimizing repetitive movements. And so when they get hurt, they're unable to work. And so they're interested for their own well-being, but they also want to make sure that as they're teaching, they're respecting those biomechanics principles so that their clients also can avoid injury.
This woman right here went to school She has a master's degree. She's an accountant, and she worked for a government or in some kind of an official job and made, I believe, something like $25, $25 a month. And so she can make a lot more money as a dance instructor and a movement, counselor kind of thing. And so this is why she would like to learn more, and she's very, very interested in what we had to offer as a way to dance and move her body.
I think what I want to ask is specifically for, I think, the older communities that you taught yoga to. Did you get the chance to like ask, what their perceptions and understanding was of yoga? I mean, I'm watching, like obviously it clicked, like their mode of dancing, which is salsa, like much more vigorous to the body versus were they open to like the more gentle, static. It's like, like very different. What was what was their take on that?
So what I thought was great is that there was a fitness instructor, and she was quite learned, um, who had an injury, and she wasn't able to do the class, but she gave us a very good background on the kinds of programming that they have there. So there were a couple of times when, take your hand off the chair. She said to us after, "Oh, I knew they were going to be able to do that because we do that in Tai Chi." So I was like, "Oh," she goes, "Yeah, we do Tai Chi regularly. We don't have a yoga teacher regularly, but we do have Tai Chi." So there were experiences, a variety of experiences that the older adults had because they were connected with this community center. So they were very receptive to try anything. They just, Laura, right? They just seemed happy to be there. And, there were new people, they got to meet us. They were just very energized about the whole experience of it.
That the experience in the city with the older adults was extraordinary, and that they had a lot of very well developed services within that community setting. So when we were doing the chair yoga, they were quite familiar with a lot of things, and they were very comfortable. And so I think that like public health initiatives in Cuba are quite strong if you are in a place where you can access them. And we experienced like very healthy aging. I know World Physiotherapy just had that as one of their themes, and there was no question that these people were aging in a very healthy way. And so that was one of the benefits of this type of society, where there are certain things that are being taken care of for you. For these people that we met, they had great services in this adult, community.